California Senator Kamala Harris is now the Democratic vice presidential nominee.
You ready to go to work?
Oh my God, I'm so ready to go to work.
Making her both the first Black and Indian American woman as part of a major party ticket.
I accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States of America.
Before the Senate, Harris made six-figure salaries as district attorney in San Francisco and attorney general of California. According to Harris's personal financial disclosure, the senator and her husband, Douglas Emhoff, are worth between $1.9 million and $6 million. She has also released 3 books, which have been very lucrative. As a fundraiser, Harris has raised millions for her own campaigns and for the Democratic Party. So let's break down how Kamala Harris made her money. After getting her JD from the UC Hastings College of Law, Harris started her career in 1990 as a deputy district attorney in Alameda, California. In 1998, San Francisco District Attorney Terrence Hallinan appointed her assistant district attorney. She quit in 2000 and took a job in City Hall. In 2003, she ran against her former boss and beat him 56-44 to become the first person of color to become district attorney in San Francisco. In 2007, she ran unopposed. During her time as San Francisco District Attorney, she started the environmental crimes and hate crime units and a prison diversion program. But she has also been criticized for her time as district attorney, as conviction rates grew under her tenure, and for not seeking the death penalty in a case where a Hispanic police officer was killed by gang members. According to her tax returns, during her time as district attorney, her adjusted gross income ranged from $145,000 to $263,000. Part of the large swing in income can be attributed to the release of her first book, Smart on Crime, in 2009, just as she was gearing up for a statewide race for attorney general.
In these memoirs, they can get it out in a completely unfiltered way. They have no middleman between them and the voters. They can tell all of their personal stories. And it's really something that most people with large national political ambitions have done for that reason.
The 2010 Attorney General campaign was the battle of the district attorneys. She faced off against Republican Los Angeles DA Steve Cooley. The race was extremely close, and Harris won by less than 75,000 votes. According to the California Secretary of State's campaign finance records, Harris raised around $5.4 million for her bid, just under the $5.5 million Cooley raised. Her 2014 re-election campaign raised $3.4 million to her Republican opponent Ronald Gold's $121,000. She won re-election 57-42. According to the Council on State Governments, her salary as Attorney General ranged from $151,000 to $159,000 per year. As Attorney General, Harris created a number of task forces and units, including the Mortgage Fraud Strike Force after the 2010 financial crisis, the Privacy Enforcement and Protection Unit against cyber fraud, and the E-Crime Unit. She has also been criticized for maintaining the status quo as Attorney General when it came to incarceration numbers and enforcing the death penalty. In 2014, the same year she won her re-election for State Attorney General, she married fellow attorney Douglas Emhoff. After their marriage, her income grew tenfold to $1.2 million, mostly from her husband's work for law firms Venable and DLA Piper. In 2018, their income grew to almost $1.9 million. According to Harris's most recent Senate disclosure, the couple had assets worth between about $2.8 and $6.3 million in 2019, a slight uptick from the $2.5 to $5.8 million they disclosed in 2018, mostly in mutual funds and retirement accounts. Their liabilities changed slightly as they paid off one of their 3 mortgages in 2019 and a home equity line of credit in 2020. Their 2 remaining mortgages and a commercial loan are worth at least $2.5 million. In 2015, after Senator Barbara Boxer announced her plans to retire, Harris threw her hat in the race. After the top 2 primary, fellow Democrat Loretta Sanchez advanced to the general election in what became the first Senate election in California history where a Republican did not appear on the ballot. Harris won the Senate seat by a landslide, 62-38. Not only was the margin of victory a landslide, but fundraising as well. Harris raised over $15 million for her bid compared to $4.5 million by her opponent. According to the FEC, she was the 15th highest fundraiser among Senate candidates in 2016. She was the first Black woman from California and the first Indian American to become a U.S. Senator. In 2018, she signed royalty agreements for 2 books she released ahead of her presidential candidacy. That year, she made $320,000 and almost $278,000 in 2019 for The Truths We Hold and Superheroes Are Everywhere.
when people are trying to be national political figures and trying to establish themselves on the scene as potential presidential candidates, pretty much everyone writes a memoir. And it's seen as a kind of stepping stone, a way to get their story out to voters. But also it's extremely lucrative for all of these candidates. So Kamala Harris's main income driver in the last few years has been her memoir.
After 2 years as senator, Harris announced her candidacy for the Democratic presidential nomination in January 2019.
Senator Kamala Harris at a Howard University basketball game, her alma mater, entering the 2020 race.
Within 24 hours, she tied Bernie Sanders for most money raised in the first day of her candidacy, raising $1.5 million from 38,000 donors. The strong fundraising helped propel her to the top tier of the large presidential primary pack in the early part of 2019. Ahead of the first primary debate in June 2019, a Real Clear Politics average of polls found her in fourth place at 7%. After that debate, where she excoriated Joe Biden's record on busing, she shot up to second place.
You know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
From then on, her poll numbers began slipping and never recovered. Ending her campaign on December 3, 2019, Harris wrote in an email to supporters, later posted to Medium that, "I'm not a billionaire, I can't fund my own campaign, and as the campaign goes on, it's become harder and harder to raise the money we need to compete." As a candidate, her criminal justice reform plan sought to scale back incarceration and the death penalty in solitary confinement, ban private prisons, and get rid of cash bail. Her presidential campaign raised over $41 million, according to the FEC. In March 2020, after Joe Biden's February win in South Carolina that turned around his luck from the previous contests, Harris endorsed her former rival's White House bid. At the last Democratic primary debate, Biden pledged to picking a woman as his running mate. In April 2020, Harris entered a joint fundraising effort with the DNC, the first presidential candidate to do so this election cycle. The agreement allowed her to raise six-figure donations for the party, fueling speculation that she was running for the VP nomination.
The joint fundraising committees allow donors to essentially double up their contribution. So if you donate to a joint fundraising committee, part of that can be used for the party, can be transferred to other candidates, can be transferred to other committees. So it really amps up the power that the party has to spend money when you're effectively giving more than you could if you were giving just directly to the campaign.
As Biden was winning races all over the country, it was rumored that about a dozen women were in the running to be his pick. And on August 11th, 6 days before the Democratic National Convention,
CNBC News has confirmed that Biden has picked California Senator Kamala Harris to be his running mate, the first woman of color in history to be chosen for such a position, ending weeks of suspense and making good on a promise he made during the primaries back in March to name a woman to run as his running mate.
Harris has proven to be an asset to the Biden campaign, and Wall Street backed the historic choice.
And Wall Street executives, a handful at least, have been cheering Joe Biden's pick of Senator Kamala Harris as his choice for a running mate.
After the Harris announcement for VP, the Biden campaign raised $26 million in one day, including 150,000 first-time donors. The campaign also raised $70 million in the 4 days of the DNC, less than the $76 million President Trump raised in the 4 days of the RNC. Despite that setback, the Biden campaign shattered monthly fundraising records with a $364 million haul in August 2020. The previous record was held by President Obama's first campaign in September 2008, with $193 million. As the election day gets closer, polls tighten and reports that the Trump campaign is in a cash crunch weeks before the election. Only time will tell if the United States will see its first female vice president. But her fundraising prowess could help the ticket prevail on November 3rd.
It's really a matter of how much voters embrace the notion that she has changed. She has been very forward in the Senate on pro-marijuana legislation, criminal justice reform. She's been particularly active on these issues this year during this reckoning over systemic racism against Black Americans. And she's really tried to change this narrative that became pretty entrenched on the political left toward her in the Democratic primary. Now, there are some voters who remain skeptical of her, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to make them not vote for the Biden-Harris ticket over the Trump-Pence ticket.